I think I like going live. I think that's my thing, is I like going live because it, I get my ideas off my head quickly, and I'll leave this up. But I want to share something. My aim is never to be a dick, but I do want to share something real quick about music theory. And we need to get some context in here. So I'm, without... what's up, Chevy Dot? So somebody posted, and I want to go through the comments. I want to go through the comments here while I'm live. The thing that really I find interesting about forums online is that, it's the internet, right? And folks be wanting to be right. I don't have a vested interest in being right. I mean, there's some things I'm right about, but like being right, there's no prize for that, right? This is not one of those cases where I'm right. I'm just throwing something out there. So let me share with you where this comes from. So I was noticing on one of the forums, a second here, one of the forums that someone had asked a question about slash chords. Okay? Now, slash chords are going to mean that you play what is, as a bass player, you're going to play whatever's on the bottom. The bottom is the note that's to the right of the slash. And so this is what got me, was that all that's here are chords. So you see where it says the moderator has turned off commenting for this post? Now, I want you to keep that in mind. I want you to keep that in mind, that the moderator has turned off commenting from the post. I can't comment on, I couldn't comment on the post. I had saw some responses to this person, and they asked, sometimes when I'm playing along with backing tracks on YouTube, the video will show the chords and there will be something like what I've got circled and the rest, because this is a screenshot, right? So let's first talk about the F sharp minor 7, the E major 7, and the G sharp diminished. All right. In a major scale, there is only one diminished chord. Okay? So right now, I'm just thinking out loud, well, what key is this in? The G sharp diminished would indicate that we're in the key of A. But hear me out. There's also an E major 7 there. Well, if we're in the key of A, the E would be the 5. And the 5 would not be major 7. It would be a dominant 7. Okay? So you see, you may not even understand, and if you don't, it's cool. You may not even understand what I'm saying. Got to know your diatonic harmony, right? But we're talking music theory. Now, F sharp minor 7, F sharp minor 7, in the key of E, the F sharp minor 7 could be a 2. Okay? In the key of A, B, C, D, E, F, the F sharp minor 7 could be the 6. So what key we're in right now is kind of ambiguous. However, what I was trying to unpack is that B, if let's say this chord progression is a pop tune. and when I say pop, I just mean a regular vanilla bean pop tune, right? Then I want to investigate a little bit further what that beat, how that beat is functioning, okay? So the original poster, the person who originally posted this said, they asked a question about what they should play. Yes, you should play what's on the right of the chord. But where a lot of us fall short, a lot of bass players, a lot of musicians fall short, is we don't go any further than that. And so what happens is there's an incomplete understanding. Let me say that again. We don't go further than that. So there's a incomplete understanding. Okay, so here's what my response was, right? Here's to hoping I don't get banned. LOL. I'm being tongue in cheek here. Not sure why the comments were turned off, but here goes. And I still don't know why the comments are turned off. If you are in a group where people are discussing and learning, and that's why in the comments of this video, I have started my own private group where, and I did that this morning. It has nothing to do with this dialogue here. And I'm not upset or anything like that, but I just want to point this out. Excuse me. The G sharp diminished, as I just mentioned, suggests we're in the key of A. There's only one naturally occurring diminished chord in a major scale, the leading tone. Not trying to stir the pot here, just offering some harmonic context. Context is everything. It is. Context is everything. Yes, technically, the bass player usually plays the note after the slash in a slash chord. If there's no bass, okay, because what we do is we miss out on that. If there were no bass player, that chord written like that would indicate that the piano player would play the B in their left hand. If it were just a guitar player by themselves, they would play the lowest note would be B. Okay? Now, context is key. Because let's say you have a guitar player and a piano player together. You see how theoretical this gets? And when I say theoretical, I'm not talking about complex. I'm talking about it all depends. It just depends. If I'm a guitar player and I'm playing with a keyboard player, we might decide, even in the moment, who's going to play that lower note. You see what I'm saying? Let me bring it back to bass context, right? There's a beautiful video of Lisa Coleman, Prince. She's talking about how Prince taught her how to play I Want to Be Your Lover. And she was playing it one way, and he said, no, play it this way, meaning play it closer to the middle or higher on the keyboard because we already have a bass player. You can always, and this is not to be insulting. When I say maturity, I'm not trying to insult anybody. I mean the experience level. You can always tell really mature, experienced keyboard players when they understand the genre that they're playing. And I'm saying that because down, like in New Orleans music, the bass will double or complement it depends on context, right? But when the keyboard player is not all in bass territory. You understand what I'm saying? So having said that, context is key. So what I'm trying to get to is let's understand a little bit more than just play what's on the right of the chord. And while I'm talking, you probably are reading what I have up here. If there's no bass, that note becomes the lowest pitch in the voicing of the chordal instrument, guitar or keys, right? But if you want to understand why you're playing that note, I said a few nights ago on a live stream that there's certain things that bass players don't know, and you don't know because you don't want to know. We live in the information age, and so really, literally, you can learn anything. You can find out anything, and if you just don't know, it's because you don't want to know, and that's okay because you don't have to know everything. You know, that's it. You don't have to know everything. So anyway, but if you want to understand the why you're playing that note, you've got to look at the function and the key center, not just the chord symbol. Okay? When you're learning songs, and I know that I do bass tutorials and stuff here online, but here's the thing. You want to know, when you really learn a song, you want to know the whole song, not just the bass line. You want to know why the bass line works against the chords that the keyboard player or the guitar player is playing, right? You want to know those things because that will help you improvise. It will help you to create your own bass lines, all that, right? So if you see something like, this is what I wrote here. If you see something like A over B, it's worth asking, what is the role of the B? This is going to be important in my opinion, right? B does not exist naturally in that chord. And when I say, I shouldn't say naturally. What I mean is, if we're playing some Vanilla Bean pop tune, right? That could be something. And guess what else? A lot of times when you find stuff on the internet, it's wrong. So you still have to go to the well of your mind. Chevy Dodd, I'm gonna read your comment in just a second. Because I really want to know what you said. Let's see. It doesn't appear in a basic A triad because an A triad is A, C sharp, and E. It is now, it always has been, and it always will be, right? A major 7 is an A, C sharp, E, and G sharp. Always has been, always will be. B is the second note in A major, right? It's the fifth note of B. You see how all this theory shit starts to come into play here? Now, the two chords that we could play with are A major 7, E major. But there's an A, as is written here, there's an A triad, right? There's an A triad. So we can have an A add 9. We can have an A9. We can have an A major 9. We can have an A sus2. We can have an A6-9. My question is, should you play the B? It all depends. Yes, as a theory practice or theoretical practice, as a guideline, if you will, as a guideline, I'm going to call it a guideline, that if you see that, you should play the note that's on the right of the thing, right? But what I said here, I think, to be honest with you, if I imagine this chord, right, my guess is that the A, again, context is key, and I don't know the context because I'm looking at a screenshot and not on the bandstand. The B may not be, but I'm thinking that the B may not be the best note to play there, right? It may not be the best note to play there. Listen, react. Don't just follow the symbol. Slash chords are sometimes a hint, not a hard rule. Your ears, your instinct, and the band leader are going to overrule what's on the paper. Music theory does not mean music facts. Now, here's where I find things to get really interesting. You got these responses are like, you didn't read nothing I said, which why would I even think that they would? But you're not at all wrong in theory, but in practice, this would just result in being asked by the band leader, hey, what was with that chord? And having you explain the thought behind it. No, actually not. But since the moderator turned off the comments, I can't respond. Right? That's why you have rehearsals and things like that. And most of the time, not most of the time, but sometimes, often, at least in my experience, if you play something and you used your best judgment and it didn't sound like shit, the band leader's not going to ask you anything. Right? And if you are in a situation, bars. And if you're in a situation where it's that serious, where the band leader would question you on that, you'd have rehearsed. Let me say that again. If it's a situation that is that serious, you'd have rehearsed and y'all would have worked that out. And at the end of the day, what did I say? The band leader is going to overrule what's on the paper. I said that. But I can't respond because the moderator turned off the comments. Why are we like that? That's quite a long explanation for something simple, and you have it wrong. A over B is always an A major triad with a B as its bass note underneath. Nothing more, nothing less. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more, especially if you want to be a well-rounded musician. If you want to know, well, why does that sound like that? Why does that sound like that? And of course, like any written chord, you can play any note as a bassist as long as it makes sense in the melody of your bass line. But that was if I understood the original post correctly, not the question asked. Somebody else says, okay, I don't agree with you. I see this progression in the key of E, which is perfectly valid. How do y'all not know this? How do we not know what? How come I can't reply? How come I can't reply? This guy has gotten himself in hot water. I've seen that name before. A over B, the bass note is A. So here's where we have, in my opinion, what's wrong with music. And a lot of times when we spend too much time in forums and whatnot, that means bass is on B and chord A. You need study harmony to, holy shit. Again, you play the B. That's why it's written that way. You follow the symbol because it's written that way. So, yeah, I feel after reading some of those responses, I feel completely vindicated because y'all don't be like this. Chevy Dowd, I'm coming. Don't be like this. Don't be like that. Yes, while I didn't understand the theory very well, though I appreciate it, I like learning theory. They're not wrong. No, those people are not wrong. They are not wrong. What I'm suggesting is that crack open the door, walk into the door, start finding out more. There is no sometimes there is. Sometimes there is. You just play what's written. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. But that's why I preface it with, listen, I don't know what this doesn't tell me a lot. This doesn't tell me a lot at all. And anything that we discuss, even if we discuss whether the key center is A major or E major, is really irrelevant Everybody who says you play what is to the right of the chord, that is 100% correct. I'm just suggesting that you go deeper and understand, if you want to, understand what that, excuse me, that you understand what the role of that B is in the chord, right? It's a 9, okay? But the 9, just hear me out here. The 9 is an extension. It's an extension. And a lot of times, extensions are on the top. So why does the chord symbol denote playing it on the bottom? I'm not saying that it's wrong. That may be what the composer wants. I'm just curious to what it is and why. And what I encourage people to do is find out the why. But these types of things really turn me off about groups, right? About groups, because we don't get a chance to really dialogue. Like, a bunch of people say something, I'm like, well, shit, why can't I reply to this? That's kind of whack, you know? But whatever. Whatevs. I'm just saying. Now, Chevy Dodd says, in this case, I'll sometimes play the 5th, 4th of these two because I can't decide which sounds better. I hate that play what's written comment. Yeah, man, we playing music. We playing music. The one that got me was when, you know, the band leader would be asking you. No, he wouldn't. Or she. No, they wouldn't. Not if you're, because first of all, if you're on like a pickup gig or something like that, and you're just calling tunes that you may or may not know, you gonna play whatever you play in the moment, and that shit's, unless there's a train wreck, that shit's gonna go by and nobody's gonna talk about that again. At least not that night. Right? A lot of times. Number 2, if the band leader feels some type of way about you having played something that they didn't like, chances are high that you would have rehearsed that, and the discussion would have come up in rehearsal. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I think these groups are, you know, I don't listen. I don't want to shade the moderator of the group. I kind of do. Only because you can't, you know, when we close off dialogue like that, or when everybody kind of gets on their little pissy soapbox, we don't learn. We don't learn. And we're supposed to be able to lift each other up, right? So anyway, just this morning, actually long before I even saw that post, I saw that post while I was driving, and then I went to go get lunch, and I decided to respond to it. But this morning, I started my own private group. And it's linked in the comments. And you can, you know, what's up, Samson? You can go on and join the group over there. I'm not doing the whole moderator, you can't, unless you're being like an asshole, then, you know, then we can't have that. But, you know, I'm trying to have a each one teach one kind of a space, because at the end of the day, I don't know, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, I'm going to say it all the time. I don't know one bass player that has cured AIDS, cancer, or COVID. Not one. Show ain't me. If I did any one of those things, I don't know if I'd be playing the bass. I mean, I'd be playing the bass, but I don't know if I'd be doing it on YouTube. I might be doing it on some like private island somewhere, sipping pina coladas. You know what I mean? So, anyway, guys, what's on the page, music theory is music theory. It's not music facts. And music theory really, the most music theory does, I don't know, I can't say the most that it does. Music theory helps you talk about music. It helps you theorize about music. It helps you ponder what ifs about music. Are there some rules? Yeah. An A major triad is always going to be A, C sharp, and E. An A major 7 arpeggio or A major 7 chord is always going to be A, C sharp, E, and G sharp. Always. 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 That's a rule, right? Major scale is always going to be whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. A major scale is always going to be 1 major, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, unless it's a 7th chord, and then it'll be dominant. 6 is going to be minor, 7 is going to be diminished. Always. Those are rules. Those are formulas, right? But then what we do with those things, what's up, Fleece? What we do with those things is where, in my opinion, in my theory, is what it is. So, man, I gotta fix this so my camera don't keep cutting off, because I mean the end screen is just so sexy. But if I have to let me do that again. Boom, that's what I'm talking about. I have to set those up before I start the stream. Anyway, let me say again. If you want to join a private group, come over and join. The link is in the description of this live stream. You can go on and join my group. Introduce yourself, where you're coming from. Invite some other bass players there. But it's going to be a spot where we're going to learn. We're going to learn together. We're going to learn and we're going to share. And not all that rigmarole. We ain't doing that over there. All right? Friends, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Catch you in the next one. Peace. 2 fingers.